Okay, it's preparing. Okay, so welcome to Abroad While Black this week. This week we have Chanel with us, who's from Philly. We know that this is a platform where each week we basically share stories of Black Americans who have lived abroad in various contexts. So, just to introduce myself, I'm Cordy Aziz. I moved to Ghana 10 years ago. I'm the founder and executive director of Environment 360. And I'm a strong advocate for Black Americans looking at other places that they can actually live. I do think the opportunities are endless, and I think that sometimes we're not achieving those opportunities. My co-host is Sean Burrows, who's located in Nigeria. So maybe you want to give a little bit about yourself, Sean?
Yeah, I'm located in Nigeria. I first moved to Ghana in 2014. In 2017, I moved to Lagos, the New York City of the African continent. What I'm really passionate about, especially these days, is building an economic bridge between Africa's diaspora and the continent itself. Everybody else shouldn't be the only one profiting off raw materials and things that are the building blocks of wealth. We need to tap into that as well. Really happy to be here. Hey, Chanel.
Hey, how are you?
All
Great.
right,
And our
all
guest
right.
today is Chanel. And Chanel is really interesting because Chanel is from South Philly. So I'm sure you'll give us all the
Southwest
background about.
Philly. Southwest Philly.
Okay, my bad.
It's cool.
Well, let me just be general. She's from Philly, and she currently lives in Paris. And she has a really interesting story of how she got there. Chanel is limited on time. Paris is, I think, 6 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's got some evening plans. So what we want to do, typically, we have some conversation at the beginning of Abroad While Black that sort of talks about what happened in the U.S. this week and our viewpoints. This week, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to go ahead and jump into the interview with Chanel, and then we'll be able to do our commentary afterwards. So please stick around. It's always going to be very interesting as always. So Chanel, you're from Philly, not South, but West. So tell us a little bit. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Southwest.
Southwest Philly. Okay. So obviously there's a difference. So maybe you can start telling us about the difference between Southwest Philly and the other parts of Philly.
Well, it's just about the location. That's one difference, and the people are different too. So depending on, what part of Philly you from, you might think that Southwest got some of the worst people, but I would say we the best. So yes, I'm from Southwest Philly. I'm a trained attorney. I was actually a government attorney before I moved to Paris in 2016. I moved to Paris in 2016 to be with my now husband, and I've been here ever since. I am currently employed as a law professor at the University Panthéon Assas, which is a top law school in France. And I've just been here for the last 4 years, figuring stuff out, taking it a day at a time. But I'm happy to share my experience.
Great. So I think it's important just to touch a little bit more on your background because I think when typically people think about Americans living abroad or Black Americans living abroad, we always think about people that sort of came from rosy type backgrounds and had international experience at a young age. When was your first international experience and sort of what sparked that?
I first traveled abroad in 2012 to Spain, El Escorial, Spain. It's actually about 45 minutes outside of Madrid. I did a study abroad when I was in law school, and it completely turned me out. Some people, you go out abroad and you get the travel bug, and it's all you want to do. Some people, they don't like it, but for me, it traveling abroad, it totally turned me out. And I was about 25 at that time, I would say. So it took me 25 years to travel abroad. And if it wasn't for that experience, I don't know when I would have traveled abroad or even got a passport, because I specifically remember obtaining a passport just to be able to travel abroad. That's not even something that I had within my possession.
Hmm. I think it's very important that we kind of mention what you just said, because I know I spent a lot of time not even considering that moving abroad was something that I wanted to do. America kind of gives you that this is the best place to be, and with it being so large, there's definitely a lot of different places to travel. So with that being said, I remember I had a very terrible experience when I traveled to Spain. I was in Madrid, and I guess these times are actually telling us now that there's a bit of racism in its own context in every different place you go. So with that being said, I guess since we're jumping into the conversation a bit, I've heard that Parisian are quite aggressive when it comes to their culture. Not to say that it borders upon racism, but when it comes to making sure you speak the language in certain spaces, they're not really having patience for people who haven't taken the time to learn French and different things like that. Have you had any experiences in that space where they kind of giving you a hard time?
So I have two thoughts on that. On one hand, I think that that's true to an extent. Parisians or French in general are very serious about their culture and maintaining their heritage in terms of things being like specifically French. Actually, I'm not even sure if you're aware. I wasn't aware until I got here, but it's unconstitutional to classify people or even identify people by color. You cannot ask for a person's race. Like, you know how in America we would be African American. There's no such thing as Algerian French or African French or Black French. Like if you're French, you're French. They say they don't see color, but literally you cannot ask for someone's color. So to them, French is French. You speak French, that's your identity, and there's no subgroups or subsets of that. In terms of language, they appreciate the fact that you try. I mean, they don't expect for you to necessarily be fluent. They appreciate if you try. However, I will say that you can get by not speaking French because this is such a highly touristic area that everywhere you go, you're going to run into people who speak English. And so you can really get by not speaking French. But I mean, me personally, even though I'm not necessarily fluent, I do try. So I guess that helps. I never had anybody treat me any type of way because I couldn't speak French. But when I do speak French and, you know, my accent isn't perfect, and they hear me trying, they'll just immediately like respond to me in English. So even when I try, they'll actually speak to me in English. So it's not that they're trying to force you to speak French. They just want to know if you can show some, I don't know if it's respect, or as long as you try, it goes a long way.
Okay.
So I think that that's really interesting because I have been in Paris as well. And I do think that it is a similar thing. I think that they are very proud of being French, but they are definitely willing to accommodate you on some level. But even before we get too much into that, I want to go back to one interesting fact that you said about actually not having a passport until you were 25. So does that mean you were pretty much the first person in your family to travel abroad, or what is your sort of family background? Did they see you as unusual when you traveled abroad? Was it a proud moment? Sort of, let's go back to that, because a lot of Black people don't have passports, and I think we don't realize the power of a passport. So I'm just interested more in that.
So I would say I have family members who traveled abroad through the military. In terms of leisurely, though, I do know that my grandma, she used to travel to the Bahamas. She tells these stories about her partying in the Bahamas. I'm not sure if you needed a passport back then, because I know even up until recently, you could just like go hop on a ferry from Florida. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you needed a passport back then. But mostly the international travels that my family has taken has been through the military. Sorry, you might hear my son screaming in the background.
It's okay. We do babies. I got a baby too. She pops in sometimes. We're just monitoring now. She can pop in any second.
Shout out to all the babies watching worldwide.
Yeah, so military, but I'm definitely the first person in my family to study abroad. And I don't know if they looked at me as that was accomplishment, but that was definitely accomplishment in terms of I was proud to do that, to basically take that step. I was the first person in my family to go to college, go to grad school, and then
Wow.
travel abroad. And these are well, the steps that I had to take to do all of those things are things that I had to learn on my own. Actually, I remember when I got my passport, I had to get help from my congressman, you know, and Cordy used to work in Congress, so you definitely know that immigration, as it falls under Congress. I think that, oh, I know what it is, because I needed a visa. So matter of fact, I'm sorry, I guess I'm mixing stories. This wasn't when I first got my passport. This is when I went to Ghana, actually, when I needed.
Okay, so Ghana was your first entry.
No, Spain was my first
No.
entry, and then the next year I went to
Okay.
Ghana, and I needed a visa, and there was like some type of hold up, and I had to get help from our local congressman in terms of like the visa, passport situation, and you know those are things that I had to learn on my own how to navigate all of that. I think I can't hear you. Is that just me?
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, I'm on mute. Sorry about that. So one thing though, I also want to talk about, because you talk about you're the first person in your family to go to college. You're the first person to really live abroad. And I think this is huge because I think oftentimes when we look at or think about living abroad, of course, it's going to be the people around us that sort of dictate that. And you touched a little bit on Southwest Philly, but even when you look at the people that you went to high school with and college with, do you think that basically those people as well, is it something where they were doing this, or so what are your colleagues doing? What is the socioeconomic background of Southwest Philly, and how does that work?
Southwest Philly, you know, typical inner city, urban neighborhood where, you know, most people are going to be working class, not necessarily, it's definitely not middle class, even though you do have some middle class families who live in the area, mostly lower and working class people who don't obtain higher education. So I am unique in that I was able to obtain higher education, travel abroad frequently, and then ultimately move abroad.
Okay, and I think that that's really interesting to be said. So, like, when you even look at like your colleagues, your friends, people you grew up with, like, what is it? Does it blow their mind that you live abroad? Sort of, what is their viewpoint on it?
Yeah, for the most part, I get lots of support. People are fascinated and always want to hear about what's going on. Uh, Honestly, sometimes I feel bad though because uh, it is easier said than done, and I probably make it look better than what it is. Sometimes it probably sounds fabulous. I mean, you tell people you live in Paris and they're just like, oh wow. But it's like, you know, yeah, we have the Louvre, but Paris has some hoods too. I don't live in the hood in Paris, but you know, it's not all ooh la wee wee bonbons and macaroons and stuff. Like, don't get it twisted. You know,
Okay.
we have our stuff with us too. And you know, I don't really share the struggles that I go through in terms of the loneliness that I can have, certain, you know, personal voids in terms of missing family,
Yeah,
even career wise. I was an attorney. I'm still working in the legal field in that I'm able to teach law, but I'm not actively practicing, and I do miss
yeah.
home court. So I did sacrifice a lot to come here And that's not something I talk about. When you see me post online, you're gonna see me like sipping
South
wine,
of France.
like south of France. That's what you're gonna see. I mean, but I don't like hide what's going on. I just don't necessarily broadcast that as much as I'm gonna highlight the good stuff that's going on.
Is there some reason that you choose to sort of highlight sort of the highs rather than some of the loneliness and isolation? Because as someone who's moved abroad, I think anybody who's moved abroad can relate to some of these things that you're talking about. So is there some reason why is it to encourage people? Is it just because, I mean, you feel like you don't want people asking too many questions? What do you think has sort of led to your display of your lifestyle there in Paris?
Yeah, I think it's probably just to focus on the good. And I mean, even though someone that asked me, I would always keep it real, but I think it's probably just a focus on the good and not be like too negative, because I might end up talking about stuff and then kind of talk myself out of something like, hold up, but wait, what am I doing? So yeah, it's just probably just to focus on the good, because if I focus on like the loneliness, I might reach out to people and they might not know that I needed to talk to them at that moment because I was feeling lonely. I might talk to you and I'm like, hey, what's up? Oh my gosh, like I miss you. It's good to catch up. And
Yeah,
that's me kind of saying, yo, you have no idea how hard it is to find friends here. It's so good to speak to somebody in English and have this connection. I have not yet found that here in Paris. To you, it just sounds like I'm talking to, catching up with a friend. But to me, that's what that conversation is.
I think that
yeah.
that you mentioned something that's really important. It reminds me of kind of like a different element of the Black tax being the first one to get out, how you have to kind of reach out and do different things. I think it's very important that African Americans in particular have more of a international network given the economic power that we have. And I think that sometimes in order for us to be out there and hold the weight of we didn't just leave home to be nobody somewhere else, we have to kind of keep that everything is fine, everything is all right. I often see this same response a lot of times from members of my African friends, basically from Nigeria, Ghana, and other places, where when they're traveling, the expectation is you've gone to America, let's say the lap of luxury. And if you're not making it there, and if you're not doing something well there with yourself, then obviously you're a failure. And I think we kind of take on a little bit of that as well. So with that being said, with the traveling, with the living there and the loneliness, I guess, what are some of the ways you kind of get past it? I think, again, it's very important that we here tell the truth of what's going on and give the, sometimes the dark corners that come with living abroad. But like, yeah, how do you get past it? I know that like what I do, this is part of how I cope. What do you do?
To be honest, I think for the longest, I kind of like block stuff out because this is what I wanted for so long. And all right, so when I say this is what I wanted for so long, I graduated law school in 2014. I moved here in 2016. So for 2 years, I was studying, passing the bar, applying to jobs. I eventually got a job as a lawyer in the States. So within that time period, I had also been talking to my husband, and I had decided that, well, my now husband, I had decided I wanted to move to Paris. So that was my goal all along. So I was like in the States, but I was like halfway there and halfway trying to get here. So I was like obsessed with Paris. I was like doing a bunch of research.
So just curious, so I guess you moved, this is investigative journalism. So you moved, I guess, the husband was actually living in Paris?
Yeah, my husband been here forever. Actually, when I told you when I went to Spain in 2012, did my study abroad, that's when I met my husband.
Okay.
So we
and tell us about that. Like, how did you meet your boo?
We had like Yo, we have the corniest, cutest story ever. So, 2012, I was in Spain, and Europe is so small. Going from Madrid to Paris is like going from Philly to New York. You can hop around. So, this is when the Watch the Throne, Kanye and Jay Z, that Watch the Throne album was out, and they had their tour. And I thought, I was like, yo, it would be so dope to hear them saying niggas in Paris. So I came here. I came to Paris for that concert, and I was actually by myself. And
Wow.
I literally met my husband at the show. I have the moment we met on camera because I was just like filming everything, and he like hopped in my camera. He like,
Ah,
yeah, he hopped in the camera.
fortune favors the bold situations. Could
Yeah.
have got
And
slapped, could have got a girlfriend.
right. So he got on the camera, and we just we became friends. I never expected none of this. Like, we would stay in contact, eventually fall in love. I moved here. We were just friends at first. We were just friends. I was just like, oh, I know this cool guy in Paris. We were just friends. We stayed in touch, and then at some point, I guess it just clicked.
Wow. So you
So
met
this,
your husband basically doing a solo trip
Yeah,
at a Jay-Z and Kanye concert in
yeah,
Paris.
yeah.
You see, hip hop, the love is worldwide.
Right.
this brings a very interesting another ripple, not to just tear apart your personal life, but again, I guess was he already spoke English like very well, or was
Yeah,
that part of the learning? Was he like originally French, or did he also move there?
he's a Senegalese. He's
Uh-huh.
from Senegal, and he had moved to Paris for university. So I guess he came here when he was like 18. He's been here for like, I don't know, 15 years or however long he's been here. So yeah, he was perfectly bilingual. Thank God. And that's actually interesting. Something as simple, or depending on how you look at it, major as language could be what separates you from love. You know what I mean? Like, there could be a
Hmm.
soulmate out there, and y'all just don't speak each other language. Literally, you hear
Yeah.
a thing about love languages. How about language?
I think you bring up a good point because last week, just for those who have tuned in, this is Abroad While Black. This week, we're speaking with Chanel, who's from Philly, who moved to Paris in 2016. So we're just sort of learning about her struggles, how everything has been. So we've just found out that she met her fiance, or her now husband, at a Jay-Z and Kanye concert in Paris, and that she basically has been traveling abroad since 2012, when she actually first went to Spain. She was the first person in her family to actually go to college as well. So she's just given a little outlay of some of the challenges she struggles with, which includes some loneliness every now and then. And one of the things I think that's important to touch upon is the sacrifice as well, because one of the things you said is, I mean, you had really worked hard to go to law school, which I'm sure was also a big first in your family. And then not only had you gone to law school, but you actually became a state attorney, which I mean, is a sort of, it's a big deal. I mean, it's not like you just a regular attorney in private practice. So, I mean, to go and turn around and give up this great job to go to Paris, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Was it the same economically? Did you make some sacrifices? How did you actually do that leap from being a state attorney, I mean, into a lecturer?
And
Okay.
let me
So
give a quick shout out right quick. We have Nichelle, Faustin, my guy, my brother from another mother. We have Diane. Welcome all, and thank you all for joining. Please continue.
Um, so I I definitely didn't want to give up being a lawyer. It's not like I was like, oh, I hate being a lawyer. I want to move. I want to quit this and move. I wanted to move. I would ideally love to be a lawyer here, but it was a language barrier. But there actually are a lot of international attorneys in Paris. Paris is a big hub for international arbitration and international commercial affairs. So there are quite a few American attorneys who are here at very big law firms, but mostly they're going to be bilingual. There may be some American attorneys here who aren't bilingual. I haven't come across any, but you would have had to been in a situation where your American firm sent you here, and I wasn't in that situation. When I
Mm.
wanted to move, it was more about a timing thing, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to be an attorney here, and I was kind of willing to do not necessarily anything, but I was willing to compromise to come here. And so I thought, like most people, you know, teaching English is like the easiest job to get in another country if you don't speak the language. Fortunately, I was able to teach English or legal English, I should say. So my job technically is considered a language job. So for my students, it's an English class for them, but it's not like English grammar class. It's a legal English class. So I teach American law in English. So it's a specialized English course. So they're at that level because they're law students. So you know they're beyond learning English grammar. Now they're learning specialized English. They're learning cases in English. You know these when you get outside of America, you learn that other people or other countries, they really teach their people. You know, they want you to be bilingual and they want you to know everything in that language. You'll know science, you'll know math. If you want to be a doctor, you'll be taking medical English, medical Spanish. Like they really learn this stuff. So I was fortunate to find my position. Speaking of which, I want to encourage people to take a leap of faith because you never know how your skills will be valued. I specifically remember that my job's notification or the job description, it said that they weren't going to sponsor people, but they ended up sponsoring me. Okay,
Oh,
so
cool.
don't be
So
discouraged.
for those who aren't familiar, can you just talk about what sponsoring means a little bit more in depth?
Okay, so as a American, we're able to travel to Europe for at least, I mean, I'm sorry, at max 90 days as a tourist without having a visa. Now, if you want to work, you do have to have a visa. Uh, you can, there are several type of visas you can get. You can get like an entrepreneurial visa in which you would have your own business. It's very expensive and tedious to obtain that type of visa, but it is possible. The other option is, you know, the traditional way. You find a job that is willing to sponsor you to obtain a visa to go there and work for them. Most jobs, or I would say all jobs, it's a requirement that they have to prove to the government that there's a special reason why they're going to hire this foreigner and not a local. So you have to have some type of skill that can't be readily found within the country. So my position and with my skills, I was lucky in that number one, I'm a native English speaker. So I'm teaching English. I'm a native English speaker. And then I'm teaching legal English and I'm an American attorney. So that's perfect. So when I applied to my job, they definitely they wanted me, even though they said no, you know, we're not going to sponsor people at this time. As soon as I applied, their only question was they were kind of shocked, like, well, why do you want to give up being a lawyer to move here? And I was like, because I'm moving here to be with my fiance. I'm getting married. And then once they heard that, it was like, oh, okay, sure, like we'll take you. So I actually had my job before I moved here, and they sponsored me for my visa to come here. Matter of fact, I had two jobs. I had two jobs at two different universities prior to moving here. I had two jobs lined up. There's a whole source of English speaking jobs in France at the university level, mostly specialized English, not necessarily grammar, which I think a lot of people will be interested in. When people talk about teaching English abroad, they're usually talking about some type of grammar or lower level. This is more sophisticated. So whatever you are, if you're a doctor, a nurse, even maybe marketing communications, whatever you do, I'm pretty sure there's a specialized English course that you can teach at the French university level.
Wow, that's so interesting that you say this. I just want to touch on two things that I think are important. I don't know if Sean will also be able to realize, but one is having faith and stepping out, because so many times we do talk ourselves out of opportunities that look like they aren't for us, even in fact when they can have great benefit for us. And two, the level of opportunity, particularly to speak English, not at a grammatical level, but even a higher level. So for those of you who are just joining, this is Abroad While Black. We meet each week to share stories of Black people that have lived abroad. This week, we're speaking with Chanel, who is from Southwest Philly. She moved to Paris in 2016. She's sharing experiences about how she teaches English. She teaches a law course at one of the top universities, I believe, in Paris.
Number one. It's like the Harvard of France. Are you familiar with the Sorbonne?
Well, I am, yes, because I've been to Paris, so, but before then, no.
The Sorbonne is like basically the Harvard of France. So my university is within the Sorbonne system of universities.
Excellent. So you see, she went to go teach English at one of the top universities in Paris. And she's really talking about that even if you don't necessarily speak the language, there's still opportunities to get around. So now let's talk about this, because like you said, you were saying earlier that you're sort of situational with your French. So can you elaborate on that for those people that missed that earlier? And can you even talk about, because your husband's French speaking, so how does that also play into your dynamic sometimes of needing him to support other things? How was that experience?
So this is a great question. I'm gonna tell people this. This is your number one tip, so you don't fall into my trap. I would be super fluent French if my husband spoke to me in French more and he like forced me to speak French. Our problem is we speak in English and I work in English. So that's two like X's against me, where I'm not being forced to speak French. Like I'm working in English and I'm talking to my husband in French. I'm sorry, English. But if one day he had put his foot down, or if he still puts his foot down and like, no, I'm talking to you in French, I would like pick up French like that, because I would be forced to. And I do depend on him, unfortunately, to do a lot of my paperwork or like go over stuff with me. And again, he does it. But if one day he just says, no, you need to do this on your own, my skills would become much better. But because he does what I say, he's and does my work for me, and well, in terms of paperwork, is not helping me to an advance. But I do have a 1 year old, and my husband speaks to him in French, and I speak to him in English. And honestly, within the last year, I've learned a lot just listening to him talk to the baby. So I'm actually
So,
probably learning French with the baby. And I'm also
girl,
determined to not have my kid talking about me and I don't know what he's saying. So I need to like hurry up. And
so Chanel, we're in the same boat, because, me as well, I don't speak Twi well. I'm also sort of situational. So I know enough to like hit the situation and maybe know what you're talking about, but I'm not fluent. And part of my challenge is my husband does not speak Twi with me. Like he instantly, his default is just English. So yes, I just had a baby as well. So I think I'm going to actually learn with a baby as well, because as you mentioned, we cannot have children that are over there dogging us out and we don't know what's happening. So I agree that this baby has been like more motivation to get on my tree.
I feel like y'all are displacing a lot of this on the husband. I feel like Google Translate works.
Because for me, I think when you live in a country where people speak a different language, like you said, if you're never forced to speak that language, it's completely different. So I know we have people in Ghana that come for short term because they're in the village and nobody speaks English, their Twi level comes out so much higher. So I just was relating to what you were saying. I can see that, yeah, if you probably had to speak French or were forced, because they say a large part of speaking a language is confidence.
it's confidence. And, we're talking about our husbands, but that's also because, that's are partners in these countries. You have to understand too, whether you're in another country or wherever you are, one of the things people will tell you if you're trying to learn a language is get a partner. So we
Mhm.
have the perfect partner. Like, you're not going to talk to your best friend all day every day like, this person lives with you, you got a husband, like what? Like, take advantage.
I get you.
But
I
it
get
never
you.
works out the way we planned.
Yeah. Well, for those, I guess, in this chat traveling single while abroad, I'll give some tips that I learned. And for me, what I really learned is that I learned this in Washington, D.C., actually, dealing with, or not even dealing with, really trying to participate or be accepted by the Ethiopian community. I find that a lot of cultural cues, or you understand a lot more about the culture and the people that you're actually by understanding the language. Perfect example being in America, we have 50,000 words for friend. But if I may be mistaken in the country, I believe it's Japan, but they have one word for friend in Japan. And that kind of speaks to culturally, there's less of a focus on friendship and more of a focus on, let's say, other things that are important to them culturally. So it's very interesting. So for me, it was more so diving into the community, diving into cultural aspects, asking a lot of questions, going to events that would only be in a particular language, and just kind of again immersing and trying to understand the culture itself. And then that in effect kind of gave me a thirst to want to understand more words or
Hey,
more
but
language.
Sean, are you fluent in the language of Ethiopia? I don't know what it is. Excuse my ignorance. Are you fluent in that language?
I'm a Siganalu. I'd like to say thank you for asking me
Chanel,
that
our
question.
point is correct, boo. Our point is correct. You see, this is what you call the fishing bait. He done talked around. It's great you went to the events. How many events in Paris have you been to, Chanel?
We're supposed to be building each other up, but it's fine. I'll be fine. I'll
So, and one of the other things I really want to get on, Chanel, is really because, like you said, you've just had a child as well. And I know, I mean, it's hard to be away from family as well, particularly like when you start having children, because maybe you don't have the support that you envision yourself having. How do you sort of deal with, like, maybe not being able to go to Thanksgiving every year, not being able to go to Christmas, your family not watching your son grow up? How do you sort of deal with those things as well?
Well, we missed Thanksgiving. Well, the baby missed his first Thanksgiving last fall. We were able to go there for Christmas, so we spent his first Christmas there. That was cool. Uh, Prior to having a baby, I would mostly go there for a lot of holidays. One of the beauties in teaching is that it's almost like I work 6 months out of the year. I'm always off on holidays, so I was always able to travel around that time. So holidays weren't that bad because I was able to go home for those major holidays. But it's the little stuff in between. You hear about people being sick, and normally you would be able to stop by and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Take them something, but you're not able to do that. It hurts you to hear about it. Um, that's those type of things that I have more of an issue with, more so than holiday. It's just like the everyday recitals, graduations, sickness, random things that are beyond your control.
Yeah. And one of the things you also mentioned is that sometimes the loneliness comes from having a harder time connecting. Is it because you mainly speak English, or what do you think your issue with
Uh,
connecting? Is it a cultural thing, even because even though French love French, they say they don't see race. It's also been said that they're really not that fond of Black people.
I think that it is more on, yeah, language is language, because I guess I would be able to meet more people and talk to them if I spoke the language. It's also about opportunity. To be honest, when I first got here, I was like in a bubble with my husband. Like, we did everything together. And now, I guess for like the last 2 years or so, I'm like, all right, now I want to start dealing with other people, like meeting friends. Like, I can't just do everything with you. So when I first got here, there really wasn't a push. I didn't feel as lonely. I guess I was like caught up in the newness and of being with him, and like happy we were finally together, something that we planned so long for. But then when I finally stepped back and said, "Oh, I want friends," it was like, "Whoa! Like how am I gonna finagle this? I don't necessarily have the opportunity or maybe want to hang out with my colleagues. I want to create my own life outside of work. And like, where do I meet people? In the States, you know, you meet people at work or you meet people from school or like friends of friends. But if I don't even have any friends, how am I going to meet friends of friends? So it's really about going to cultural events and Black people, if you ever want to know like where the Black people are in like European countries, concerts, like take advantage of like, you know, concerts and those type of cultural events. I mean, that's how I met my husband. I met my husband at a hip hop concert. I probably haven't seen that many Black people in Paris outside of those type of situations. You go to the concerts. I say the clubs here are more mixed than I'm used to back home. So it's not even necessarily the clubs. Yeah, so take advantage of like the cultural events, but even with culture, Black is not monolithic. I can be around a bunch of Black people here, and I might as well be around a bunch of white people because they're going to be West African and I'm Southwest Philadelphian. So, I mean, we two totally different people. I mean, I love us all, but we're totally different, totally different.
It's very interesting that you bring that up. I remember like me and my girlfriend I'm dating here. We like, you know, we have roasting. I've been roasting for a long time. I'm kind of the king of it. But I must have made a joke, and I was like, "Bye, Felicia," and "Bye, Felicia" had all of this different context. It was
Yeah,
perfect at the moment. It was so
right.
funny, and I just found myself like laughing alone.
Yeah, yeah,
Friday, life. If we're going back, Harlem Nights. You shot me in my pinky toe. Like all of these things that that I just enjoy so much. I find in certain cases that's kind of like the source of a particular type of loneliness for me.
yeah.
Please, just for entertainment sake, what are some of those one-liners, those things, those cultural icons from where you come from that don't seem to kind of go over when you
Well,
expect it
I
to?
will say one thing about my husband. I think one of the reasons why we really clicked is that he's totally engulfed in American culture. Sometimes like too much. Like he watches all these podcasts, listens to podcasts, and this and that, and I'm just like, yo, like why don't you watch something on like finances? Why are you watching? Who cares about what the hip hop community is doing in the States? Like who cares? But he's like American culture obsessed, so he knows a lot of stuff, but it'll be little obscure stuff that they're not going to talk about on the podcast, like Before I Let Go, Frankie Mays and Beverly. Like if I put that on, you know, it's not going to hit it for him. You
Lenny
may
Williams.
he's not going to get it.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Or
Motown, old school music. It hits different here for me as well. Where you look around like this is the song.
yeah.
No
Yeah, that
Luther.
type of stuff. He don't know the national Black anthem. He not gonna lift every voice and sing. He don't know what the wobble is. We were watching Insecure the other day. I don't know if y'all watched that. They were doing a wobble. He was like, "What's that dance?" I was like, "Oh, you don't know the wobble?" I'm like, "Oh, gosh." I
You
had
don't
to
know
like
about the
put it on
tiptoe, the
YouTube and give him a
butterfly?
tutorial. Like, wow, baby, you know that type of stuff. That's where I lose him. That's where we
Okay.
get to connect.
I'm curious to know. Okay, wait, Cordy, I think you're still
I was gonna say,
muted.
yeah, I think that the most really something said that I found really prolific in this thing is that Black is not Black is not monolithic. And I think sometimes people forget that. So I think you get this even when people move to West Africa. It's like you said, like the African culture and the Philly culture, like you don't even feel this like in Paris where you see a lot of Africans. So I think that that's really key for people to realize that when you move abroad, you may not find people that, I mean, you can relate to that are exactly within your niche as well.
Yeah.
Very true.
And
Very
so that's in terms of dealing with the locals, but how about other expats? So there is a Black expat community here, which I'm actually not too involved with, but I know it exists. But one thing I will say that I've learned about expats, and maybe you two will agree or disagree, it would be interesting to hear your opinions. To me, I feel like there are about only about two or three different type of people who take this plunge. You have the midlife crisis people who like might not have it all there, and they, you know what I mean, they just like throw it all up
Move.
and like run
No
away.
plan. I'm on disability.
Yeah, okay. And then you have the older people who having like this midlife crisis, and that's not going to necessarily be your friend because they got a crisis going on. Okay, y'all from the same country, y'all can talk, but y'all the conversations are going to be different. Then you have somebody like me who moved here for a specific purpose, probably love, maybe a job. So, you know, we're a little more stable because, you know, we had a little reason. And then you have like the younger people who are doing their gap years or au pair years. You know, they're like trying to figure stuff out. They're like kind of in that study abroad phase. So they're here, but they're not here for long. So you might click with them, but that's not going to be a long-term friend. So yeah, I think I really covered it. Those are kind of the three expat types. I've never really met like somebody who had it going on and then they moved here, but like it wasn't because it wasn't necessarily a problem there. They just was like, oh, I'm going to move here. Usually people are kind of like running from something. They're like, you know, having a crisis or something. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I really agree with that. And I think that that's something to really be said and
I'm
looked
not
at.
judging it. I'm just saying, you know.
Yeah, but I agree. I mean, I see this in Ghana as well, and this is why I really try to get people to move like when you're between 28 and 35 and 45, and like you do have like something going on, and you do have a highly regarded skill set. Because sometimes I think that it paints Black Americans in a very bad light in the culture, because the people that come out, like you said, some of them aren't really stable, and then those that do come out that are stable, it's like we may click, we may not click. We so busy with living our other lives that we don't really, reach out and sort of link up with other people. So I think that if there was a group of people that were sort of like in their prime that was coming out, it would really be a different feel and a different community in the Black experience abroad.
Right.
That is also a great reason for why I don't see a lot of transcontinental commerce. A lot of the people who are coming here, again, they don't necessarily have the mental space to be trying to set up businesses, create relationships, to be basically stable in the way that you guys were mentioning it before. And then, of course, you have the students who are not going to be here for long. They're just more so interested in a good time and all that good stuff. So I think it's very interesting. But what I'm really concerned about now, or what I really like to know a little bit more about now, because I think we're getting towards the end of your time, is with a lot of these protests, a lot of these different things going on now, Black Lives Matter is finally getting like traction that I've never seen before.
Right.
What's that experience like where you are? Like I've heard there's protests going on everywhere. There's an awakening everywhere. What's that experience like for you?
Yeah, I'm kind of removed. I haven't actually been to a protest here, and for whatever reason, I've been hearing about them after they take place. But from what I've been seeing in the media and social media, is that yes, there are thousands of people out of different races. Definitely of course, a lot of Black people, and they're demanding justice. You know, while I think American racism and police brutality is unique. Unfortunately, we have our issues all over the world, and France has had its issues as well. There's a young man, his name was Adama Touré, I believe, and he was killed in 2016, right before, either right before I got here or right when I got here. And so this whole worldwide movement has pushed his name and story back to the front, and they're demanding justice for him, and that's a big deal. In fact, the president, Macron, he spoke about it. He gave like a nationwide address the other day on TV. He was forced to address it because the protests were getting big, and people are really talking about that. So yes, that's going on here. What I do want to say is, looking at what's happening in the States, one of the reasons why I left is because I wanted to know what it felt like to be free, or to kind of live without those type of worries. Again, France or nowhere is perfect, but it doesn't feel how it does in the States. But even though I left from there, I do feel weird seeing what's happening in the States and not being there. It's kind of like watching my best friend get jumped and I can't do nothing about it. Like, I really wish I was there on the ground to participate in some type of way. I don't know necessarily how I would participate. Probably provide legal skills for the protesters, get people out of jail, stuff like that. But I wish I was there. I mean, I'm happy to see people there rising up and fighting back. I do wish that I was like actively involved. So it does feel kind of bittersweet to see this moment finally happening, but to not be a part of it.
Mm.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm on mute. I'm gonna get it right. I had to go get the baby. Shout out to my best friend Sonia, who's in town, who took the little one so I could finish out the interview. Like, it takes a village. But one of the things that I'm saying is that you actually have a Black son, and I'm assuming raising him in Paris is very different than what you would envision raising him in the U.S. Do you ever foresee yourself relocating your family back to the U.S. with your son? And if so, how does that sort of make you feel, or what are some of the anxieties that you would have about that?
Actually, prior to like everything that's going on in 2020, because I can't keep up. Prior to, I guess I say COVID was the first thing, and then now the protests. My husband and I were actually talking about going back to the States. Well, for one, when I left there, I never intended on going back. I was like, I'm done. It's a whole world. There's more to America. I'm gonna go see what's going on. One thing about America that I will say is exceptional, because everybody has this myth of American exceptionalism. To me, the only thing that is exceptional in is it's probably the top place for you to make the most money the fastest, and that's maybe because it's corrupt, or whatever it is, you can make money really fast in the States. And France, the salaries are not like they are in the States. I can make triple the money I'm making right now in the States. The only thing is here, you're not paying for education, you're not paying for healthcare. And maybe those things balance out for you. But I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I'm not trying to work for 40 years, get my rollie at the end. I need my rollie right now. I got like 10 years of work in me. I would go to the States, run it up real quick, make my 6 figures plus, do some investments, and be a citizen of the world, be able to move around. I don't have 40 years to work for nobody nowhere in the world and do that. And so I figure America, both my husband and I will be able to make more money faster than here. So that's one of the reasons, or the only reason why we was thinking about going back. However, with COVID, the beauty thing is out of that is that a lot of jobs are open to remote work. Before, people who were living abroad or interested in living abroad, everybody was always trying to work remotely, but those jobs are so scarce. Now that's becoming the new norm. So I might not even have to go to, you can get an American job but you can be wherever. So if I don't have to go there, if I can get a remote job, then I'll be wherever. If not, I may end up going back, but not necessarily permanently, just to make some quick money and to be able to do where I want wherever. And hopefully
Okay.
my son is of age to be able to have those type of issues, which can be any age. It gets younger and younger in terms of the harassment. uh Hopefully, we won't be living in that type of society anymore, or we'll be gone by that time.
So I think this is an interesting segue. Before we move into our next thing, which is sort of talking about the Juneteenth type, don't know how much time you have if you're going to be able to stay on for that. But I think that two things you touched about is that you may not be making the same amount of money that you make, that you would make in the U.S., but then other things that are provided to you sort of compensate for that. So you have education that's for free, because did you just complete another law degree or sort of soup up on that?
Yeah, I did. I was able to I got my LLM in European and French business law.
Congratulations.
Thank you. For dirt cheap compared to the States. But unfortunately, I still have Sally Mae loans that follow me wherever. But if I knew what I knew now, I would have went to university in Europe from the door. That's another thing I want to tell people. A lot of these non-English speaking countries are teaching degree programs in English. Okay, France has universities in which you can get a degree in any subject taught completely in English. So keep that in mind.
I think that's great advice.
So keep that in mind. And so in terms of salaries, no, I don't make as much as I would make, but some of the benefits that they give you to kind of balance it out is that, your health care is taken care of. A lot of these jobs, they give you even like lunch subsidies. You'll get like a food card, and you can spend like 25 euros every day for lunch. So you're not paying for lunch. They give you a Navigo card, which is your Metro card, so your transportation is free, and they also might give you a subsidy for housing. With my husband's job, we're able to get a subsidy for housing. So you may not make six figures, but the benefits that you're getting, it kind of washes it out. But I still want my six figures though, so that's why some got to change.
Um, are you able to access these benefits as a citizen or not as a citizen?
It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a citizen. Long as you're here, you have legal authority to be here. So once you have your legal authority to be here, you can start obtaining medical benefits. And then once you start working, you'll get the other benefits from your job. Those aren't necessarily from the government, but health is from the government. And once you have your visa, that's what kind of activates that. So no, you don't have to be a citizen. In fact, some people travel here to get medical work done. You don't have to be a citizen.
Okay, so you don't have to be a citizen. Now, I think these processes are different everywhere you go, but did you find the whole immigration process or getting your visa and all those different things to be quite difficult, or was it quite
fortunately, my job took care of everything. So I didn't have to go through the process, but from what I hear, it can be very trying to, like I said, to find a job that is sponsor you, or to get an entrepreneurial visa. I would say that my suggestions to people is that the easiest way is to be a student, and you don't have to be a university student. You can be a language student. You can come here and take a language course or go to a language school for like 6 months or something like that. That can be your segue. And once you get here, find a job or something else. So you can go to the student route. That's a route. I would say that's probably the easiest way to come here. And if you're up to, I believe, age 30, I want to say, the is it the American Chamber of Commerce, or it's either the American Chamber of Commerce? No, it must be the French Chamber of Commerce in America. You'll have to Google this. I'll send you guys a link. I'm sorry, I don't know it by heart because I didn't use it, but I am aware of this program where you go through the French American Chamber of Commerce, and it's particularly the New York branch, I believe. They have a program where they set up Americans under a certain age, I think under the age of 30. They connect you with the French employer to get a visa. So that's another.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, and so what groups that I would recommend to people? Facebook groups. So there are two groups. There's one Facebook group, Americans in France Facebook group, and also American Expats in Paris. There are thousands of us in those groups, and they are a wealth of information. You join, and you ask a question, and people will chime in and give you answers. So if you're specifically
Americans in France and Americans in
American
Paris?
Expats in Paris. So Americans in France and American Expats in Paris.
Okay.
Right, and we'll be posting all of these links on the page as well.
Yeah, I'll send you that French American Commerce. I'm gonna find that and I'm gonna send that to you. Oh, and I'll also send you the link to the list of English taught programs at French universities. I'll send you that as well.
Awesome.
Great, so we'll be posting all of that on the Facebook page. Once again, thanks for joining Abroad While Black.
You can send me a message, and I'll help people however way I can.
Great, we see the little, can you just give your tagline that people can reach you at?
So my Instagram is nelly.esq, NELLY.ESQ, and on Twitter, I'm Black Girl Found. That's spelled BLKGIRLFOUND. So those are my Instagrams and Twitter accounts. I can be contacted on there, or you can send me a message on Facebook or under my name, Chanel Andrews, however way people want to contact me.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we get all of those resources up and then get everything as well. Sean, any last questions or comments for Chanel?
No, thank you very much for taking your time to join us today. Hello to the little guy, welcome. Nice cameo there.
He's looking just like his mother.
Thanks for having me. This is great. I'm sorry that I gotta cut it short, but I enjoyed talking to you, and maybe we'll pick up with a part 2 and address some more specific topics.
That'll be great. That'll be great. So thank everyone for joining Abroad While Black. Our guest today was Chanel. We'll be posting her information online so that you can reach out to her as you need to. And we'll also be giving you opportunities to get some of the other resources that she talked about today. So Chanel is originally from Philly, moved to Paris, and she actually lives in Paris without speaking French, which is a little unusual. So she's been talking to us today about opportunities that exist when you don't speak the language, how you can actually look at getting a student visa and actually using that as an entry point into the country to access benefits and other things, as well as how to find a job, mainly speaking in English, which she really recommended universities and other of those key resources.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I'll also send you the link for English teaching jobs and like specialized English. I'll send you that as well.
Perfect. So she'll send you the link. So if you know that you're looking at moving to Europe or Paris in particular, we'll put that information up and then you'll be able to search it for a job there. So once again, Abroad While Black, thank you for joining us, Chanel. Enjoy your time. She just had to show off her MILF body. I think that's why she had to stand up. We see you, Chanel. We see you.
All right. So I'll talk to you guys.
Okay, bye, Chanel. Thanks for joining us.
Bye. Bye.
Great. So I think that was really an interesting conversation. So definitely enjoyed speaking with Chanel and getting all of that information. I think she brought up some really good points. What do you think your top 3 points that you felt were the best this morning, Sean?
The best ones that I liked, I think we'll probably share the same ones, but I think it was important that she touched on the part about kind of it can get lonely there and some of the cultural aspects of it. I think another important one was, again, letting us know that there are ways to kind of get in. The student link was very important as maybe people earlier in their career or something like that. But that was also very, very insightful for people who are looking into getting there. And then, and even previous to that, she was actually touching on some points about if you're talking about moving there professionally. Actually, she touched on some interesting career paths, or if you have experience in certain paths, that would be useful for finding work there in Paris. Again, I can't say enough. I think it's amazing that we're able to see ourselves from different corners of the world and from different perspectives, especially given that America, again, kind of pumps that they're the best place and the only place that you can go to. So that was very insightful to me. What did you like about it, Courtney? What did you find?
So I think that there were several points. Is one, I felt really great that she was the only one and she knew that she was sort of unusual to her family, and that she also understood that she really sort of served as an example, which I think is magnificent. I think number 2, she touched on the point that Black is not monolithic, so you're not always going to find people that are your skin color that like the same thing or have your same cultural references, which is why I always tell people before you decide to make a move, go and visit a place, because where I feel at home may not be where you feel at home. And then number 3, I think that she made a good point, is that you really have to be able to step out on faith. So if you're looking at opportunities that you think you fit in, you might actually be missing opportunities that you don't fit in. Because as she mentioned, when she applied for her job, they were very clear that they weren't going to sponsor anybody and that basically you need to live in the country. And I mean, she still applied and she was still able to get the job, even though, and I mean, they sponsored her. And that was something very specifically said that they weren't going to do in the job advertisement. So I think that was also really interesting, really encouraging people to have a little bit more faith when you're looking abroad, and that even if you don't fit all the criteria or check all the boxes, if you fit the majority, then you should be confident enough to be able to go for that particular opportunity.
Yes. Also, honorable mention. For those out there still dating, you never know who you may be missing out on by not being able to speak certain languages. You know,
that was interesting.
Learning certain things, you open yourself up to a whole nother thing. So for some of our single friends out there saying, hey, men ain't nothing and we can't find nobody good and where are the good people at, maybe try learning another language. Just gonna Salt Bay that one in there.
So don't sprinkle on them, Sean. Don't sprinkle on them now.
Okay, too much. I'll bring it back. But let's jump into this other concept that we wanted to talk about. So basically, I think we touched on it previously, but it was the Juneteenth movement, people finally respecting the Juneteenth movement from a corporate position. And some of these companies actually relive or, just kind of like supporting the holiday. I think that's very interesting. When I remember like whole entire states like Arizona would not even recognize Martin Luther King Day. And some of these other holidays that are more specific to African Americans. So if I'm just gonna jump out there and start off this whole conversation, I'm gonna say I don't trust it. I'm generally at a resting.
Hit the like button. Hit the like button if you don't trust it. Hit the heart button if you know it ain't real.
I don't feel it. I think that historically, Black civil rights movements from the American perspective have consistently started off with a lot of passion, a lot of power, a lot of commitment, a lot of participation, and they fizzle out very quickly. And I think that we're seeing a lot of things being thrown at us. A lot of concessions and conversations are being entered in. And I don't mind. I think it's a great idea that we're having these conversations. And I think some of the laws that are being overchanged and different things like that are very important. But it's just like, we've been here, we've been the same person, and this whole police brutality thing is not new. A lot of these things are not really a new instance when it comes to us protesting and doing different things like that. So I'm just kind of questioning myself, like, why are they doing this now? Why are some of these companies now deciding that all of a sudden they want to kind of dive in and respect and show us all this different support, when just a little while ago, when Cap was taking the knee, people were giving him death threats. I don't understand this, and it just does not seem authentic to have such a quick turnaround when these things have been consistently happening.
So for me, I think two things. And once again, I want to encourage people to hit the heart or like button if you know this Juneteenth is a scam. For me, I see capitalization. I totally think that what it is another 4th of July. Who's going to get rich off of this? They're going to have sales on sodas for Juneteenth. They're going to be producing T-shirts, mass production that aren't produced by Black people. They're going to be selling y'all extra fireworks. This is simply just another commercialization activity. So for them, it makes economic sense to actually commercialize Juneteenth. It's not because they're giving Black people something and they recognize Juneteenth. I think that is totally a setup. And for those people in the South, I mean, we've been knowing what Juneteenth is. I know if you're from Mississippi or Texas, it's not the first time that you've heard it. There are Juneteenth celebrations. My homegirl even does one in St. Louis. So for those of us that have been around the block, we know what's happening. The second point I think I want to bring up is that I don't trust this Juneteenth thing, because I just feel as if, like you said, this is repetitive of history. If you look at 1968, the Civil Rights Act, this was the exact same temperament. People were marching, people were rioting, people were protesting. And then Lyndon B. Johnson signed in the 1968 Civil Rights Act, very similar to the act Congress is now doing with social reform. Black people were happy, had a victory, got complacent, and then moved. But when you look at today, if you look at the Civil Rights Act, we still have so many of these things that are not right. We still have redlining in certain communities. Real estate agents are still keeping Black people in one particular area or outlying them in another area. So for me, I think if you really believe in this Juneteenth hype and you really think that giving you a paid day off is something to be celebrated, I'm not so sure you really understand the context of what's happening right now.
Yeah, and let me jump back into that point. What ended up happening was Juneteenth represents slaves in Texas 2 years after they were freed, finding out that they were free and no longer slaves. And what that signifies is a very important point to me. When it comes to what I say that corporations are engaged in, I take my cues from the executive branch. Why do I take my cues from the executive branch? The number one reason being just understanding how the whole process works. So you have your legislative branch that makes the laws, and the court is supposed to basically interpret the laws if there's some type of misunderstanding. But the key part that makes these laws actually work or actually come down to the grassroots level where it works for us is the executive branch. This is a major reason why I'm looking very closely at what some of these laws regarding police are being passed and different things like that, because no matter what's happening with some of these corporations, they may be able to say that they support us. They may be able to say that they believe us, but there's not going to be anybody to make them, even if they pass these laws that look good and sound good to us, there's going to be nobody who's going to make them follow those laws. There's going to be nothing or no mechanism in place to enforce these laws. And if you look at where the executive branch is right now, you have Trump, who's trying to basically have a Juneteenth celebration in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he's not for Juneteenth. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And if you think victory is getting Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben removed from the box, we just have a long way to go. And these things are things that I think that have always been to pacify Black people. And I think, welcome to Broad While Black once again, if you haven't been here. If you missed Chanel earlier, the video will post live to Facebook, so you'll be able to go back and get Chanel's tips for how she moved to Europe and sort of how you can also do the same. But one of the things I think that it's also very important that these things are meant to pacify Black people and make them feel like they're part of society. And one thing I think Chanel hit on during her interview is that she said, even though Paris may not be the best, and they do have police brutality and some other things that aren't necessarily, it's still completely different from the U.S., and she feels a completely different way in the U.S. And I think that that speaks volumes that you can go to another society where things look a little bit different. And once again, you still feel the relief of not necessarily having to deal with everything. There's just something to say about being outside of the U.S. So, and I know for me, typically I'm based in Ghana. I've been sort of stranded due to COVID for the past few months. But for me, like just watching Black people in America and living here, like I'm tired for y'all. I'm tired of seeing these Facebook posts. I'm tired of seeing the Facebook rants. I'm tired of people using their energy to go back and forth with somebody that doesn't believe the same things that they believe. Like, how much energy do you have to do this? And what else could you be doing or building or creating if this energy wasn't consuming you to this particular level?
It's you bring up a point. It's exhausting. I think, and we also have to be aware that people are harvesting our energy. People are taking advantage of certain activities that we are participating in. Perfect example being these protesters who are looting and rioting. If we look at what happened quite recently, I believe it was in Atlanta, where it was a Mr. Brooks, I believe his last name was. I don't want to mess up the last name, but basically he was killed by the police, and protesters there decided to kind of follow up and go and destroy the Wendy's in front of where everything happened. And it's like, you don't realize that the people who own these
a white woman set that Wendy's on fire. A white woman set that Wendy's on fire.
Oh, I didn't know that. See.
Yeah, and let's also be clear that I was saying, like, I don't understand how in this given climate, every Black person saw a Black man sleeping in the car and nobody decided to stop and tap on the window to say anything, knowing that he might be in danger. Or even when you saw the police and you know it could have gone wrong, like nobody decided to park and like create like a intimidation thing, like we watching you type deal. I think being your brother's keeper is, essential in these times. And I think that if you're not willing to do that, then you really shouldn't go to protest. If it's not your business when they alive, don't make it your business when they dead.
Man, I don't even know what to say behind that one. That one was heavy.
Yeah. So that was one thing that stuck out to me about the Wendy's incident, is that, and I'm sure that even after he was shot, Black people continued through the drive-through to get their food, despite even Wendy's giving to the Trump campaign. So these are things that, like, I think Black people, we have much larger battles than Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, and a paid holiday on Juneteenth.
I agree. And also keep in mind, some of these buildings that are being burned down have insurance on them. So you have cases where people are still participating in your demise. And then at the end of the day, once something crazy has happened, they're able to even profit off of the chaos that's happening around these situations. So again, and just touching back on what we were saying a little bit earlier, again, the executive branch, the people who are supposed to be enforcing these laws and protecting us, are not participating. And in fact, you're hearing the opposite. So again, a lot of our activities have to be focused because the energy that it takes, again, some of this energy that's being harvested from us is part of it being us going in so many different directions, not being aligned on message, not being aligned on exactly what we're trying to accomplish in these different regions, in these different sectors. Again, there's just a lot going on where if we're not united, we're going to be fighting a lot of different battles. And oftentimes you find it's often a court strategy where if you're trying to litigate or go against someone, they'll just basically just extend the court case, extend the court case, extend the court case till you're not able to afford to continue to protect yourself or to fight for the cause that you were there for in the first place. So we can't get too distracted, and we do have to focus. And the focus, again, is not a holiday and a paid day off. It's far more than that. If they would have given us, I'm not going to say that we are ready for reparations, but if we were given reparations and certain things like that, we wouldn't need these days off and paid holidays. We would be company.
Well, I'm ready for reparations.
We would have more CEOs.
This may be the one reason I pick up residency in the U.S. again. Boo, where my reparations? I deserve it.
Well, again, if we don't have systems in place
Put a heart if you think you need reparations. Put a heart.
I'm not saying we don't need reparations. What I'm saying is that if we don't have any place to hold our money, if we don't have any systems, mechanisms, companies in place to help us kind of recycle that money, then we're going to get reparations and give that money right back to where it came from. Dave Chappelle did an amazing job with the skit that he had when he did the one on Black reparations.
Yeah.
We will be buying cars, trucks, and all these things to make us feel like we are whole people, to make us feel like we are equal to everybody else because now we have money. But we need to realize it was never money that was going to make us equal. It's leverage, it's power, it's influence that forces people to have to come to the table. And though that, again, that would be something that we would have in a short burst and would dissipate if we don't have a plan in place. We need to be whole people with a plan in place before we even start talking about reparations, in my opinion.
Okay, so thank you so much for that, Sean. We've got about 3 minutes, so we just want to wrap up. Thanks to everyone for joining Abroad While Black today. We hope that you enjoyed the show. I'm speaking with Chanel. Chanel moved from Philly to Paris. She gave us some amazing resources and links that we'll be posting here on the group. We ask that you please, if you haven't liked the page, like the page, follow it, sign up for the Facebook Live so you know when we're going live. Invite a friend, host a watch party so that people can actually better learn what it is on how you can live abroad and opportunities to live abroad as well. Next week, we have Janetta Nzali, who is based in Ghana, but she works with the Her Collective, and she actually supports helping people find jobs in Ghana. So if you know you sort of want to relocate to Ghana, you're looking for a job, looking for an entrepreneur opportunity, she should be a great resource for that. So make sure that you tune in, that you invite a friend, and as always, we'll post all the resources on the page. If you want to reach out to Chanel and you didn't catch her information or you can't find it in the video, send us a message and we'll put you directly in contact with Chanel so that you're able to do that. Next week, I'll be broadcasting from a surprise location. We'll give you more about that later throughout the week on live. But I think that, Sean, any final words in these last 2 minutes?
I think you've touched on the major parts, but I'm looking forward to next week as well. So hopefully we'll see everybody there. What I would like everybody to do, because again, I'm very interested in a financial revolution. So what I'd like everybody to do is kind of, if you have a website, if you have a link or a business that you're running, I'm going to create a database, but please send me the links to your website either on the page or in this chat. So I can follow up with you guys and we can kind of see what type of talents do we have in this group. I have no doubt in my mind.
And tag other Black people that you know have businesses too.
Yeah.
So remember, there's more than enough for everybody. It's not that just because you're there, you're going to be the only business there. So let's start this commerce. And once again, tag other people that might be interested or need their information listed on this page or in this database so that we can start transatlantic commerce as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that one, that's all I have for the day. It was fun. It was a good one.
Good. So thank everyone again for joining Abroad While Black. You can join us next Saturday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we will be speaking with Janetta Nzali, who will be talking about Her Collective and how they are supporting people with finding jobs in Ghana through a variety of methods, as well as just her relocation experience and how she moved through from the U.S. into Ghana. So we look forward to seeing everyone next week. Again, we're here at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thanks everyone for joining in today. We'll see you later.